Alzheimer's dementia is a disease process characterized by symptoms that interfere with activities of daily living, or ADLs. These symptoms range from cognitive problems like memory loss, confusion, difficulty speaking or articulating, and inability to recognize familiar objects, but also includes personality changes, behavioral disorders, physical changes, inability to walk or move, and anxiety and depression. Research actually suggests that understanding how to manage the disease is actually the most vital focus of individuals and families suffering with Alzheimer's dementia. Learning to cope is really the key to getting through Alzheimer's. I've been fascinated by the disease and how it affects individuals differently for a really long time. I work with individuals who suffer from the disease. I witness the struggles that they go through. I go through it with them. I hold their hand. I celebrate the successes. But really, no two individuals have the same disease process, which is why this is such an interesting disease and a devastating disease, really, which I'd like to discuss first, just the disease itself. Exactly what it does mechanically to the body. Then I'd like to actually discuss the pathology, how it's working inside the body, what it's doing to the brain. And finally, I'd like to discuss treatment options, preventative methods, things like that. So an abundance of research has actually been performed and reviewed in order to gain a kind of perspective on the struggles of patients with Alzheimer's dementia and the things that they go through every day. Oftentimes, these individuals kind of experience a really unique sense of loss going through the symptoms that are occurring to them. Often a change in their relationships occur, mostly between like family members. A drastic shift in responsibility often is associated with that, as family members, parents are having to be taken care of by their children, or spouses are having to take more responsibility with their significant other. And often accompanying that is a lot of anger and frustration with the individual with Alzheimer's. They see their decline, and it really is very frustrating to not be able to do what you once did and have to rely on the people that you love to take care of you. And it has caused a stigma surrounding Alzheimer's, as kind of discussed in Bohr's research back in 2007. A huge fear that others will find out about your diagnosis and won't be able to understand or listen to really how you're feeling or how it's affecting you. And I think everybody would be afraid of that. It really impacts the individual's quality of life. However, as I've stated before, this is a cognitive disease. It mostly impairs functionality of the individual. There's still no effective pharmacological treatment. There's no medication that aids in reducing severity or damage done. And really nothing that will help restore cognitive function in the brain of those who are affected. It's believed that the largest pathological feature of Alzheimer's dementia actually consists of amyloid plaques in the brain, which contain a toxic protein which is linked to neurodegeneration. It causes oxidative stress, which does damage to cellular structures in the brain, causing brain inflammation, which in turn does more damage to cellular structures in the brain, and eventually becomes so severe that the patient begins to really cognitively decline. And for those living with the effects of that, it's really unfortunate that the treatment has yet to be discovered. However, a lot of progress has been made in understanding different treatment methods and ways to restore that function. And Phillips' research back in 2015 actually supported the role of physical activity in optimizing the mechanistic pathways believed to underlie the disease process. Nothing really showed a reverse of the damage, but he emphasized that physical activity might be used as an ideal preventative measure for those aware of any family history or managing those diagnosed in an attempt to slow the disease. Really, ideally, those who are seeking answers to manage their disease would probably appreciate knowing that interventions applied earlier in life are most likely to achieve the disease modification, most likely to prevent any onset. Understanding that pathology of the disease is really important for those looking for answers in hopes of slowing, those negative effects. Today, I first discussed Alzheimer's itself, the way it really affected an individual physically, emotionally, psychologically. Following that, I discussed the pathology and the way it affects the brain. Finally, I talked about treatments and coping mechanisms and ways to prevent this disease. Research does suggest that understanding how to manage the disease is really the most vital focus of individuals and families suffering with Alzheimer's. Learning to cope is really the ideal situation that needs to kind of be looked at. Because of the increased need in dementia care and services, it's vital that a solid knowledge base is founded for the patient's best chances at managing the disease. All aspects of the disease, physical, social, psychological, all of it has to be understood thoroughly in order to make any type of progress or have any hope in not allowing, this disease to overcome the individual. Hopefully with more research and studies and tests, one day a better alternative to simply managing the disease will come about. But until then, it's really important to do what we can with what we have until that day comes.